beats to help on Liberty Radio.
Hello everyone, welcome to Hearts Beat to Help on Liberty Radio. I'm here in the studio again, and every day we are diving into this book, The Pleasure of Revenge, at 1 p.m. I'm glad to see many of you connected. Don't forget to write down where you're connecting from. And how has this book been for you? Share in the comments right now how this book has been for you, how you've been learning things through this book reading. Yesterday we read chapter 2. We read the beginning of chapter 2, which was normalizing resentment. Very, very powerful. Very, very powerful. We're going to continue reading, and it's good that you share your feedback and also promote this, because people need to know, how wonderful this is. This book that we're reading, that we're diving into, has been really eye-opening, and I'm sure that you who are reading this book together with us now, it is being a blessing, and it will continue to be a blessing. It's something that I believe that there are people who look forward to this throughout the day. Afternoon, lunchtime, connect at 1 p.m. for us to dive into the book, The Pleasure of Revenge. Now, we're going to go straight into it. I hope you've done the homework. We are now on page 40, so you can still read with us, but if there's any pages that you have missing, make sure that you take time to go backwards, catch up on it, so that we can be all on the same page and in the same spirit, so that we are diving in and learning together. Don't forget to share on the chat how this book has helped you and what you've learned so far, so that we can bless everyone who's also listening with your comments. Let's go straight into chapter 2, page 40. Never has been, isn't, and never has been, isn't it? And never will be.
The Pleasure of Revenge by Ede Macedo. Chapter 2, page 40. Never has been, isn't, and never will be.
To seek revenge means to inflict upon another the suffering endured. Many people claim to thirst for justice, but deep down, what they really thirst for is revenge. They disguise this because, after all, being vengeful sounds bad. They look to portray a good image to others and don't want to be as those who repay in kind. However, inwardly, most people who are harmed hope that the offender will reap with interest and monetary correction the harm they've done. To justify these feelings and conflicts, they use the expression, what goes around comes around, or distort biblical verses, casting God in the role of avenger or a kind of executor of their vengeful instincts, as if the Lord, who is holy, would involve himself in demands filled with hatred or answer prayers tainted with vengeful intentions. Like a common prayer that you see sometimes people, they say, that we've heard this before, that God will strike you with thunder. God will strike you with thunder. Listen to this. The person prays for God to strike someone with thunder. How can God, who is pure, who is holy, who is good? The rich young ruler once went to Jesus, and asked Jesus. He went to him and said, "Good teacher." And Jesus said, "No one is good except the Father." So how can the good Father strike someone down with lightning? This is a prayer that will not be answered. Will not be answered. Those who pray, "My God, kill my adversary." That's a prayer that will not be answered, because that's not the DNA of God. God does not fulfill our vengeful and resentful desires. God fulfills his desires inside of our life. So that's a prayer request that, if you have a tendency or you've heard people, you know already, this prayer request is not answered by God. It's not God's nature. Although some people may think that the desires of vengeful is harmless feelings, It's important to emphasize that in all divine creation, there never has been, isn't it, and never will be a being entitled to vengeance. There is only one who is just and therefore capable of acting with righteousness and judgment. For this reason, we are invited to take our cause to God and wait for justice from Him. Don't say, "I will recompense evil." Wait for the Lord and He will save you. Proverbs 20:22. Between trusting God and vengeance, there is an abyss of unbelief. A person who commits an act of retaliation does not want to wait for God to act, either because they do not believe His retribution to be just or because they do not respect His perfect timing. In their impatience, they prefer to anticipate and resolve the matter in their own way. This haste, besides leading the person to commit an injustice, is the usurpation of a right that belongs to the Most High, which was not assigned to any human being. Those who seek revenge desire to be in control and therefore take the place of God, doing exactly the opposite of what the Bible teaches. To seek vengeance is to disregard the justice that comes from God. It is not to believe that He is able to defend His children. It is impossible for a person to trust and wait for God's justice whilst harboring resentment and desire for others to suffer. So that means that you are taking the place of God, because we say we trust in God, we believe in God, but when you go out of your way to seek for vengeance, especially when you do it yourself, it's like you're pushing God aside, because you're saying, "God, with this particular case, I need to take matters into my own hands, because if I depend on you and I wait on you, it's not going to work." That's wrong. However, religious acts, even if great, coming from vengeful people, will only further their sin. God cannot give them what they seek at the altar. He moves by faith and not by resentment. If you read the previous segment that we did yesterday, you would have seen the example that Bishop was given of a famous preacher who she healed many, but because of a misunderstanding, she refused to forgive and she carried it. And other preachers came to her and they explained to her that she needs to forgive, and she refused to forgive, and she died not forgiven. A preacher who performed many miracles. So what was the profit of this? What was the profit of this? So you see that there are people that, okay, they may have faith, they pray strong, they come to the church, they evangelize, but if you don't forgive, you are sowing seeds that are falling by the wayside or thorny ground. Not even on thorny ground, by the wayside. It will not grow, because you are doing the right thing, but you're not being the right person. To conclude, we should never try to use God and His word for selfish purposes. For as it is written, "You ask and do not receive, because you ask amiss, that you may spend on your own pleasures." Very nice, this verse, because we've never really seen this verse in this aspect. You ask and do not receive, because you ask amiss, that you may spend on your own pleasures. In other words, so that you may have the pleasure of revenge. Powerful. You ask, but you don't receive, because you want. This is really powerful. This is why whenever we ask something, or whenever someone's hurt us, we need to pray, "My God, please, I don't know what to do. I know my desire is to get them back, to hurt them, even tiny things. I say tiny things as maybe someone did something to you today, and your desire is to walk past them and ignore them." Listen to me. Your desire is not to pick up their calls. Your desire is not to see them. If they're sitting down, you want to sit somewhere else. That's your desire. Is that God's desire? Because if this is not God's desire and you're doing this, then you are asking, but you're not going to receive because you ask amiss. God can see these little things. Like the book said before, forgive me to use this word, these petty things. And they reveal a lot about you. They reveal a lot about your character, about your heart. So if you are the type of person that you do this, you should say, God, that's what I feel like doing. I don't want to do what I feel like. Let me do what you want. Of course, there are people that we need to stay away from. There are people that God shows you that you need to keep your distance from. That's not the same thing. That's you obeying God by making a conscious decision for the sake of your own salvation, for your mind, for your peace, to be at distance with this person. Not because you have something against them, but because that's what God has required of you. But there's those who, because you have something against them, you don't like them. So when you see them, you know, everyone gets a lovely smile, but this one doesn't get a lovely smile from you. So this is something that you need to see inside of your heart. To conclude, this is the Lord Jesus will not answer any request if the motivation or purpose is evil. Think twice about some of the prayer requests you've been making. Observe and see some of the requests you've been presented to God and see if it's coming from a clear and a pure heart or not. Well, today was very nice. I believe it was a blessing. And tomorrow we're going to continue with page 42, the Mercy Will Lack, reminding you that we have the blood donation drive this weekend and next weekend. We're really excited because it's going to be a blessing. I have no doubt whatsoever it's going to be a blessing. All right. We have here in Finsbury Park almost 30 people that are booked for this weekend. This weekend is going to be very busy, but I'm sure that you who are doing your part, you are helping, it's going to be profitable. Be back again tomorrow, 1 p.m, as we continue diving into this book. May God bless you all.
Heartbeats to Help on Liberty Radio.